Hello everybody, Dokkan Assets here. Today we are back with another Dokkan Battle animation analysis video, and obviously earlier in the week we took a look at the Fizz Super Saiyan 2 to 3 Goku. So of course today we are going to be looking at the STR Kid BUU. Obviously, this guy came out with Goku himself, so we got to take a look at them as a pair. And before we get into this here, I do want to give you a little bit of a preface. I did do this in the Goku video, so if you watched that one, you probably know what's coming. But I do want you to keep in mind, as we're taking a look at these animations, that obviously these units aren't brand new. Of course, they came out on JP around the new year. Now, obviously, that is an indicator of a couple of things, but it also kind of isn't an indicator of the same things. I know, very confusing, but TLDR, right? Obviously, we have our anniversary LR here, which came out just about a month later. I love how that highlighted everything what I wanted it to highlight. Thank you. However, of course, that doesn't mean that these animations couldn't have been in production before or after, and obviously they were just implemented into the game at a different time. However, obviously the point that they are put into the game is somewhat of an indicator of the quality compared to when other animations were put into the game. So it's just something to keep in mind. Obviously, with brand new animations, I tend to be a lot more critical, and these I tend to be a little bit more like, okay, I need to put on the lens like we're in that time period of when this unit dropped. So let's go ahead and take a look at them. Obviously, every single time we watch these animations, we take a look at them one time through first. And then, of course, we take them in slow motion. Now, I actually really like this guy's animations. I think that they did a fantastic job with them. I know people have been begging for, I know the meme is sort of LR Kid BUU, but I think just at this point, any Kid BUU card would be greatly appreciated. And I think that they actually knocked it out of the park with his animations. Funny enough, even though I am definitely more of a fan of Super Saiyan 2 and Super Saiyan 3 Goku personally, I actually think that maybe Kid BUU's animations might be a little bit better, which may be a hot take, but I think just it's a little bit more fluid for our boy Kid BUU, and obviously he also doesn't have as much to critique because of course he only has the active skill, the super attack animation, and the nullify. I think Goku's are more interesting, but I think Kid BUU's might be objectively better, but we'll see as we go on if that opinion changes. So obviously, to start us off, we have the active skill here, which of course debuts with our boy sleeping, which by the way, I do like that there is a little bit of breathing going on. I know it's sort of hard to see because it's very minimal, but if you look at Kid BUU's head right around here, you can see his head bobbing up and down a little bit, which just is a nice little attention to detail. Obviously, that little piece of spit goes away as he sort of wakes up. And then, of course, we have him get angry. Now, obviously, I usually don't like animations that don't have a lot of, fluid motion between the two scenes. But I actually think that all of the points that this animation snaps from one pose to another are really well done. And I think it also fits Kid BUU's character a lot more in the places that they used it, because obviously Kid BUU is a very erratic character. So I like this part a lot, where he's laughing. That eye movement, ooh, that eye movement is so good. Like, they did a great job of getting that sort of chaotic nature of him down, right? Obviously, he's laughing here, and all of a sudden, he just stops laughing and stares at you with that unblinking eye. That is such a nice shot. And then, obviously, we get the immediate snap to the iconic pose. And, of course, the eat. Which I think, again, this is a very good use of the snap here. This animation is very simple, but I feel like it accomplishes what it needs to do with our boy getting the boost. Even here, I will say the other two things I wanted to point out about this animation. I think this sort of jolt to him being awake is perfect. Again, very erratic for Kid BUU. Him beating his chest is fantastic, and I like the way that his body moves a lot. Again, as well, like I've been saying with a lot of these BUU Saga essays, I think they do a good job with the colors as well. This is also very funny, and I like that they sort of zoom out with the smoke. I think it looks pretty good. He does look a little bit, what's the word here? Not stale. He looks a little bit like his pose should be a little bit, I don't know. I forget the specific word I'm trying to think of. It'll come to me after I'm done recording, I'm sure. He just looks a little bit awkward standing there for that specific sprite. But yeah, I think that this looks really, really good. Again, all of the places that it snaps together are really good. And the other thing that I wanted to point out was the white flash here, right? The transition from this section, I believe, yeah, here to here, right? I feel like a lot of Dokkan animations, what they'll do is they'll have the fade to white, but then instead of just fading back in, right, to the next scene, they'll just have it go, there's the scene, and it will just cut from white to whatever they want to show on the screen next. That always frustrates me because I feel like that never looks as good, and it makes it feel a lot more janky. So I'm actually really happy to see that in this animation, that's actually what they did. They have the fade to white, and then they have it fade to the close-up of Kid Buu while it's still zooming into him. I think that that looks so much better. And I definitely really, really like the way that that looks. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the attack nullify now. So obviously we have Super Saiyan 2 Goku launch a super attack with Kid Buu then cutting into the frame. It's so funny to see these animations backwards as well, because like their bangs are backwards from how they usually are when they flip it for the boss. It's very off-putting. Obviously we have the Kid Buu cut in here, and then of course we have... This is such a funny animation, I can't help but laugh. This is actually really good, the way that they do this with the cut here. So, obviously, Kid Buu is like, yeah-oh, which I think this shot is very nice. It's nice as well that they have a little bit of zoom here, right, too. They could have just had him standing there, right, getting ready for the punch. Even so, too, they have a little bit of movement on him as well. He sort of begins to duck down, and then obviously you see the fist come in. And his eyes definitely expand a little bit, too. As you can see, the black of his eyes gets a lot bigger than it was before, which is really nice. Very neat touch. And I think all of the snappy movements here actually work super well for this animation because, of course, he didn't expect to get hit by the punch. With Kid Buu flying away and then turning into, of course, the parachute mode, I guess you would call it, where he sort of flattens out here. And again, I think that this snappy movement actually works really well for Kid Buu, and it works really well for this animation. They definitely did a good choice, as well as shaking him there too. I feel like just to emphasize him sort of instantly inflating, or maybe deflating, was definitely a good touch as well to sort of emphasize some movement and distract the audience a little bit. By the way, love these motion lines. Very, very nice. Again, giving those extra little touches to make the animation feel that more lifelike. I love that the lines sort of dissipate as well. I think that's a very interesting way to do motion lines, right? You can see they kind of dissolve like that. Very cool. But yeah, this animation definitely looks very, very nice. Alright, so moving on, we now have Kid Buu's actual super attack. Obviously, again, he has less animations because Goku not only has an active skill, but he has two super attacks. Well, I guess technically they have the same amount, but I suppose it's just because the attack nullification is, of course, a little bit shorter. Alright, so we have Goku standing off against Kid Buu here to start this animation, which I think this scene looks pretty cool too. Obviously, we then have a cut to Kid Buu's foot being jammed into the ground, which I actually think this looks really, really good. The first time I saw this, I was like, oh, they did the funny foot thing. That's sick. It was very cool to see that they included this attack in here. And obviously we have the foot raise out. This is an interesting way so they don't have to like animate the actual ground breaking apart. Obviously they have rocks to sort of represent the ground breaking, but it's funny that they just have his foot come from off screen instead of needing to like animate the ground breaking through. This is actually a really cool sort of shot of perspective here because obviously we're sort of near Kid Buu's knee or near the ground as it's shooting up. So of course it would look a lot bigger closer to us, right? And his foot would look farther away and a lot smaller. Very, very nice shot of perspective here. We obviously have the cut back to Kid Buu. It's weird. This asset here still looks really good quality, but I will say it definitely looks a little bit less quality than some of the other assets that we've seen so far. Again, the movement here I feel like is really, really nice. Obviously, he gets ready to rip his leg out of the ground. And I love this too. This animation of him pulling it out of the ground is super smooth, and I definitely like that a lot. Okay, so here's the thing. Y'all know that I usually don't like blur when it comes to the changing of assets. But I think what I should say is fade. because usually I don't like it when the assets fade in between each other. This blur here is a lot more anime-esque. When a character moves really quickly, you know, you hear the whoosh sound like that, right? You kind of see characters blur in this sort of style of fashion, and I think it works really, really well for this scene as well, for him obviously backing up and then getting ready to throw the long kick. And I think that they picked a perfect expression for him too. It's just like Kid Buu. Obviously, we have the long kick, which looks super goofy. I think that even though this perspective shot is pretty cool, I feel like they definitely could have made Kid Buu a little bit bigger. It definitely feels a little bit off in terms of how the perspective should be. And funny enough, I sort of complained about this with Goku, where when he gets all stretchy, it looks really weird. But for Kid Buu, it works really well because obviously, you know, he's basically made of bubble gum. So, you know, when he stretches out and his body moves in irregular ways, it actually feels a lot more natural for him. We have him sort of spring forward, right, to then eventually kick Goku again. And we have some of that nice blur effect again here too. We have it light up as the kick makes impact. And again, you can see this asset is actually a lot lower quality. It's funny enough, even lower quality than the one that I said was lower quality before. This is like a Dokkan sprite just in HD with the sort of art style that they go for. It is cool to see though that even though that is the case, there is still a little bit of minimal movement on him. Like the individual body parts are still moving. Again, making this feel a lot more lifelike. If this was an older Dokkan essay, they wouldn't have any of that minimal movement in there. So obviously we have him fly back in towards the wall. And then we have this very nice shot of Buu sort of chuckling to himself. I will say the one thing that I find odd about the shot is that the way that his muscles move on his chest is very weird. Like I feel like his muscles shouldn't be like contorting that way. I mean, I guess it works a little bit more for Kid Buu than it does a character like Goku. But like his actual chest muscles, it kind of looks like, you know, when people do that thing where they bump their chest muscles, right? People that are really muscular. It almost kind of looks like he's doing that rather than breathing. Like I feel like the assets shouldn't move like that. I've seen that a couple times on Dokkan essays. I'm wondering if that's like one specific animator in the studio. But anyway, obviously we have this change to getting ready to do the Kamehameha here. We do have a couple of jump cuts in the actual posing here, but I think that at least the last one is okay. Let's actually take a look at this in full motion, just this one section here, and see how it looks. Let's see. Okay, so it's definitely not too bad. I kind of don't like the first jump cut here, right here, where it goes from here. Let me actually get the actual frame by frame here. So when he goes like this, right? I kind of don't like that as much. I wish there was a little bit more in like him opening his hands and ducking down before he actually gets into the beginning of the Kamehameha pose. And then the jump right here, I'm not really a big fan of either. But when he finally whips his hands together to form the Kamehameha pose, even though they definitely could have finished, because look, it's weird. Like they start the movement like he's moving it in, and then bam, he's right there. But I think for how the Kamehameha is performed in intense situations where they're like, what? And then their hands, you know, clash together immediately, I think it works. But the first couple of those is like, I feel like there could have been a little bit more movement there, but it definitely doesn't look too bad. All right, anyhow, let's keep on keeping on here in our slow-mo. Oh, hi Kid Buu, wanting to become full screen mode. Okay, so this is a very interesting shot here. So obviously the Kamehameha looks really, really good forming in his hand. I love the little glint of light that they do as well. Very nice touch for sure. Obviously, we have a sort of pan up. It's interesting that they don't pan anymore. Like, I know they're trying to pan up to above his head so that obviously he's holding the ki blast above his head. But it's weird that they don't, like, I don't know, have more in between this. At least, like, one more I feel like would have been appropriate. But anyway, obviously we have him raise his hands in the air, which looks pretty good. It is always unfortunate, though, when you see this. I think that this is a way that Dokkan works. That is the reason why this happens, because this happened with Fizz Janemba's essay where the ki blast was in front of the other character, right? I believe, even though it was coming out of Janemba's mouth and Paikon was in front of him, excuse me, it should have been behind Paikon's head, right? Not in front of his head. And obviously it should be in between his fingers here, not above his fingers. I don't know if this is something with the game's code, how they have to display the assets. Obviously, you don't see this for that much on the screen, so you probably wouldn't notice it in the actual animation anyway. It's layered over his fingers. I feel like they could solve this by just having a couple of assets like layered over each other, kind of cheesing it, sort of. But it definitely does look a little bit off-putting when you see it. But then obviously we have the Ki Blast Grow, which looks pretty good. Love the lighting effects here, not just the light that's shining on Kid Buu himself, which looks really, really cool. They definitely did a good job of that, especially with how small Kid Buu is here. The whole world turning pink as well looks fantastic, if I do say so myself. Definitely a very, very nice transition. I like as well that obviously the ball sort of moves back a little bit with him, right, as he's sort of leaning back too, which is really cool. Yeah, so he gets ready for the throw here. And then obviously we cut to the close-up shot here with Kid Buu sort of throwing it. I will say this is the one part about his essay that I always did find a little bit awkward, is that when he actually throws the ball, right, it sort of looks like the ball is behind his hands now, which funny enough is the opposite problem of what we had before, right, where it should be sort of in front of his hands, right, like his ki is formed in your palm in Dragon Ball, right? Obviously, he throws it forward. I wish there was a little bit more in between those frames right there. And it looks a little bit even awkwarder here because obviously his palms would be right here, right? Cut off the screen. And the Ki Blast is now behind his hands, which doesn't really make sense. I wish that they put a little bit more thought into that part. But obviously, we have a very nice transition into probably what is literally just the card art essay, but with multiple pieces, because as you can see, his hands actually do have a little bit of movement here as he's firing the Ki Blast. So it's cool to see that they have the individual parts for the card art. And again, y'all know I love it when they transition into the card art, when it is actually the pose that the character is taking. Now, funny enough, I kind of wish that this one was a little bit better, even though I know you're probably like slapping your knee in your seats right now because of what I just said. I kind of wish that they would have cut to, let me actually take it back 5 seconds here and then I'll pause it on it. I kind of wish they would have cut to the card art when he actually gets into the pose proper, like right here, right? I wish they would have cut to the card art and then have it sort of fade to white and then go to his face, right? Because they kind of do the opposite, right? They have his face very close up here, and then they zoom into his face and zoom out to the card art. I wish when he hit that pose, they transitioned into the card art and then they had the close-up of his face, but it's all right. At least it's close enough. All right, so then obviously we have the fade to white once again. Kid Buu throws the ball, and I gotta say, the Ki Blast effects on this one look fantastic. Not only is there still some great lighting effects on Kid Buu, but obviously we have these lines coming off of the actual Ki Blast, which looks really, really cool. And of course, the Ki Blast envelops the camera, and we actually see it pass by the camera. And the color, again, here still looks really good. Obviously, the light is reflecting on Kid Buu where it should be. As the blast finally leaves his hands and fires forward, we now get a sort of shot. I guess this is sort of a Kid Buu POV, right? As he's firing it forward into the rock. And obviously it goes past the rock and right through it into the sky and exploding. I will say the explosion effect does look pretty cool, but y'all know that I'm not as much of a fan when the ball, right, in Ki Blast is literally just a ball and it doesn't have any, like, I don't know, a little bit more dynamic look to it, I guess you would say. But I definitely don't think that it looks bad, for sure. But yeah, that is basically Kid Buu's animations here. I am quite a fan of how this guy's animations look. I think that they look pretty solid. I think even though, obviously, like I always do, I try and pick apart these animations the best I can. I, funny enough, think that there was a lot less for me saying things that there were things that I didn't like or things that I feel like they could have improved compared to Goku's animations, even though I definitely like, I think it's just because of a Super Saiyan 2 and 3 fan that I like his animations better, but I do still think that with my opinion at the beginning of the video, I do think that from an objective standpoint, right, I think that Kid Buu's animations are a little bit better. But I think that both of these units are really fantastic. I think that both of them hold up really, really well. And I think that these are definitely a little bit older units before the newer era of Dokkan essays that we're in right now, obviously started by the 7th anniversary units, that these guys will hold up for a long time to come, despite them obviously being from the 6th anniversary. So, of course, let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Let me know if you you enjoy Kid Buu's animations. Let me know whose animations you think are better as well, Goku's or Kid Buu's. And until the next animation analysis video, I will catch you guys then. Dokkan Assets out. Peace.